Hello, I'm David from Northumbria University. Sorry I couldn't be here in person today, but hopefully this small contribution will help towards the discussion. I'm going to touch on three aspects raised from the last talk. Firstly, the presence of the designer's perspective in a story. Secondly, the ability that storytelling has to arise new meaning. And finally, whether or not storytelling truly has the ability to empower people to action. For those of you who don't know my area of research, I'll give you a quick overview. Essentially, I'm interested in the design pitch from an industrial design perspective, where designers present their product and service concepts to clients. In particular, I want to understand the relationship between the ways in which designers approach storytelling and how this can affect the clients in various ways. Now, if you consider designing in general, many have found that synthesis is favoured over analysis. For example, if you are solving a scientific problem, you can take an analytical approach where you know the variables, they are all measurable, and you can affect each one in an order until you work out a solution. Because of this, many scientists would approach this problem in exactly the same way. Now, with a design problem, the variables are vast and often immeasurable. Therefore, designers have to use their own creativity and imagination to synthesize a solution and then may reiterate this in real-life contexts in order to develop it. Because of the openness to a design problem, you could argue that designers would never approach the problem in the same way. Therefore, in my opinion, it goes without saying that a designer's unique perspective is always revealed in a story they tell at a design pitch, simply because the subject matter is a concept that they have devised. Relating more specifically to approach rather than subject matter, I also believe that certain storytelling techniques can lend themselves to encouraging an audience to evolve their own meanings and consider things that perhaps they hadn't considered before. In particular, I'd like to discuss the use of metaphor. Now, in many of the cases that I've examined in my research, when design pitches have used metaphor, clients have claimed that this has enabled them to think differently about something and develop new meanings, and in some cases has also empowered them to carry a project on with an alternative motivation. Now, if you think about working out the relevance of a metaphor, it requires the use of abstracted thought, and encouraging people to think in this way is essentially what leads them to making the creative leap in establishing a new meaning. Okay, so in many cases, this type of storytelling has empowered organizations to pursue design projects with alternative motivations. However, you could still argue that the use of storytelling isn't the only factor at play here, and also certain conditions were also in place already in the organization that also empowered them to act. Now, if you translate this to social innovation, just to conclude this discussion, you could argue the same, that storytelling only unlocks something. It doesn't have the ability to empower something. It could actually be down to the conditions that are in place. Hopefully this has given people something to think about. Thank you very much for listening.